I am Dr. Molacek, applied faculty for the North Texas Online Lowe Brass Camp, and on the faculty of Iowa Western Community College in Council Bluffs, Iowa. Today, we will be talking about the second etude for the TJEA 2020-2021 All-State and All-Region auditions for the state of Texas. I will now demonstrate this etude for you on my trombone. And now, from bars 16 to the end, going from 16 to the all-state ending at measure 20. This etude was written by Lowe and is a ballad. Now, ballad playing can be one of the easiest and most difficult playing with trombone at the same time. Easy in the sense that it's slow, but just because it is slow does not mean it's hard. The most difficult part when it comes to ballad playing is more so style than anything else. Take this etude, for example. One of the biggest questions that I think a lot of students, especially advanced students, may have with this etude is when to use vibrato and what type of vibrato to use. Now, in classical playing, it is typical to use a lip vibrato, usually in a triplet motion when it comes to long passages, but only in solo playing, not in ensemble playing. With jazz, it is much the same way. However, in jazz, there's a lot of vibrato that becomes just very showy. If we go back to the 1930s and 1940s, and we watch so many of those videos of the old big bands, we see players using a lot of vibrato, and a lot of it was for looks more than anything else. There is a sound aspect that comes with it, and one of the sound aspects I picked up is that you use it when you need to make an effect, and that's for the long tones, but you cannot get too far away from the original note, and you cannot, either too sharp or too flat, and you don't want to go all the way to the next pitch. And on trombone, of course, it looks much better for looks if you use slide vibrato. I'll demonstrate with the E natural on bar 9. Now, when you have it in second position, you don't want to go all the way back to first, but you don't want to go too far into third either. When it comes to a longer note in first position, I've had it recommended a few times that you can either do it with an alternate position, or the only choice you're left with is just with lip vibrato. And the reason why these trombonists have told me this is because of the fact that you can't go back further than first position. So it doesn't quite play out the same way. Let me demonstrate for you with a B flat in first. Try to go too far in, then it's going to become just simply, you can't go anywhere. You just can't. So we have to consider that in mind when we use vibrato for this ballad. Another question with vibrato is then how does it work in the style? I have seen that this etude, and at least when playing it, there's comparisons to Lament by J.J. Johnson, which comes in about the 1950s, in which he does use a little bit of slide vibrato, but even J.J. doesn't use that much. To me, this has the feel of a more contemporary Latin rock type ballad. So you don't want to go very heavy at all on the vibrato, and you might want to do a little bit more of sliding into notes. Let me demonstrate this for you on the first 4 bars. Notice how on bar 2, I slid down into the C. You can use a little bit of a gliss like that for the desired effect. The other, and I think this is the most important thing to watch out for on this ballad, are with the greater subdivisions. For this I'm talking about the triplets and the 16th notes. With the 16th notes in particular, we want to stay and need to stay in time. When you see notes with that many black lines underneath it, as a trombone player, there is a tendency to rush. And the reason why we have a tendency to rush is because since we don't have the valves that our valve counterparts have, we want to get through it as quickly as possible. We cannot do that. We need to be able to play those subdivisions in time. Subdivide, subdivide, keep it as consistent as possible. When we see the triplets, we need to play them as triplets and not as 16th notes. Again, we need to think of the subdivision. 16th notes. Taka 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 ta. Triplets. Ta-tika 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 ta. And even though we may not be double tonguing or triple tonguing in this case, we still need to think within that mindset if it helps us to play those particular tones and notes in time. Also, keep in mind for some use of alternate positions, this is slow enough that it's not as big of an issue, but there are some places where it can be smoother when you use those. Go through the etude carefully and mark out those areas where you think it might be easier to go from a 4th to a 5th rather than a 4th to a 1, or a 3rd to a 2nd, or a 3rd to a 4th, and so forth. Intonation is going to be critical on this etude, especially in the upper register. Be mindful of your E naturals, your E flats, your A naturals, and your A flats, remembering too that they're not in the exact spots that you always think they are. This is where we can use the trombone as the giant tuning slide that it is. Practice this one with a tuner and not just simply with a metronome, or play along with the recording. In addition to the one that you are listening to from me, there are many different great examples all over YouTube, and I would recommend checking them all out, but also stressing to play along with them and seeing if you can match them tone for tone, thus improving your intonation. Some recommended listening I have for this etude in preparation would not only include J.J. Johnson's Lament, but I would also recommend Conrad Herwig's The Gatekeeper off of his New York Breed album from 1996. Conrad's playing on that particular record, I think, best showcases what the goal is for this particular etude, at least from my ears.